Take long for 31-year-old Amber Geiger to break down. She was asked about the moments leading up to the shooting death of Brent John last September.
I was scared whoever was inside my apartment was going to kill me. And I'm sorry. I have to live with that every single day.
The fired Dallas officer says she thought John was a burglar inside her apartment, when in fact she had mistakenly walked into his unlocked apartment, one floor up. Today she told jurors that John began walking towards her.
I just pulled my gun out and I yelled at him, like, let me see your hands, let me see your hands.
Then she pulled the trigger twice.
And I asked God for forgiveness, and I hate myself every single day. I feel like I don't deserve a chance to be with my family and friends. Their dad, which he was the one with the gun that killed me. I never wanted to take an innocent person's life. I am so sorry. This is not about hate. It's about being scared that night.
But during the murder trial, prosecutors have repeatedly questioned how Geiger missed signs that she was on the wrong floor, including this bright red doormat outside of John's apartment. They've also suggested she may have been distracted by sexually explicit text messages with her police partner earlier that night.
I thought it was my apartment.
They also argue that she never mentioned feeling threatened during her frantic call to 911.
When you aimed and pulled the trigger at Mr. John, shooting him in center mass exactly where you are trained, you intended to kill Mr. John.
I did.
The trial is expected to continue here tomorrow. If Geiger's convicted, the jury must also decide whether she's guilty of murder or rather lesser charges, such as manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide.
Can I give her a hug, please?
Compassion, grace.
Yes.
Whatever you call it, in a hushed courtroom in Texas tonight, we witnessed it. 18-year-old Brent John forgiving Amber Geiger, his brother's killer.
If you truly are sorry, I know I can speak for myself. I forgive you. I know if you go to God and ask Him, He will forgive you. I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you. Because I know that's exactly what both of them would want you to do.
This unlikely ending, perhaps the biggest surprise in a case that captivated the nation for more than a year.
The former police officer who shot and killed Dante Wright, she is in jail, facing second-degree murder charges, which of course is 10 years in prison, up to a $20,000 fine. This is the mugshot of former Brooklyn Center, Minnesota police officer Kimberly Potter. Potter killed 20-year-old Dante Wright Sunday during a traffic stop. Again, she was arrested around noon. She says she mistakenly pulled her gun instead of her taser. Police have been dispatched to her home as protesters gathered outside of her house. The Wright family attorney, Ben Crump, released a statement about Potter's arrest.
This is the effect of people power, that regardless of what legislatures do, regardless of what the federal government does sitting on the George Floyd Criminal Justice Reform Act, that we have cities now and district attorney offices and mayors that understand that if I don't want my city burned to the ground, I better hop on some action and get things done. Now, I do have questions about the charge that she was given, which is a second-degree manslaughter charge. So in Minnesota, that is a negligent homicide charge. That is for example, a part of the statute says if you accidentally kill somebody when you thought you were shooting a deer, that is a second-degree manslaughter under Minnesota law. So I don't know why you start there when you're coming to charges in this, because what we've seen since the moment the shooting took place was a PR campaign saying it was just a mistake, it was an accident. We don't have any evidence that this was a mistake. We don't have any evidence that this was an accident. I own a Glock and I own a taser. You cannot confuse the two in any reasonable person's mind. A black Glock 17 weighs about 30 ounces. A X26 taser weighs about 10 ounces. One is bright green and neon green. The other is black. One of them, you have to flip a switch up with your thumb in order to activate it. The taser then allows it to charge for a couple seconds. On the Glock, there's not even a safety on it, so you can fire instantly. So the idea that somehow we are going to begin by presuming that it was an accident, this is no different than killing somebody during a deer hunting accident. I do think that we have to re-examine that, because we give white women the benefit of the doubt when it comes to interactions with black men. We saw this with Brent John, where a black man can be sitting on his couch eating ice cream, and you shoot him in his own house, and you get a Bible and a hug from the judge and a hug from the victim's brother. We saw this with Emmett Till, where the woman finally admitted years later that she was lying, and there was still no justice in that case.
Mr. Muhammad, I know you want to say a few more words on separation before we go to another subject.
Mr. Cuff, I'm very anxious to finish what we started with on the separation. It is very nice and good for America to prepare educationally her slave that she once had in servitude. The education that we have acquired from white America, it will help us to begin to foreself anywhere on this earth that we may prefer to go or stay. If we are to stay here with you, we must stay in a separate part of America with you. And the education is still accepted. We need all the education, I must stop and say that we can, of good education, to help us to go for self. And as far as our reaction to what we have acquired in the way of education, it doesn't mean that we should now be satisfied to remain with you just because that we have now acquired more respect of self in the way of education and can do more better service for you than we have in the past. The thing of it is, since we have acquired enough to make a step out of the house of bondage where that our fathers was enslaved or put in bondage, we should now go, and you should help us to go and provide the necessary means for us to continue going in the way of self. This would also give you a great and a good name. The slave master sent his slave off with the provision to keep going for himself. We need modern tools now. We don't need to apply a mule. We need a tractor. And we need the land, certainly, that will provide a living and the necessity of life otherwise, such as buildings and other machineries. We want that we can go into as you have went into it and pull out of her treasures the necessary means for us to build a nation for ourselves.
But is this consistent, Mr. Muhammad, with your position? You were saying about the Negro doing things for himself. Then you say the government must turn around and give him all this territory and operate it for him for 20 years.
We think the government is obligated. We have given her 400 years. And now we want to go for ourselves. How are we to get started for ourselves if the slave master is not willing to provide the means for us to go free for ourselves?
In your position on separation, did you feel that the Supreme Court made a mistake in 1954 when it ruled that segregation must end in the public school systems?
No, I don't say the government made a mistake by saying the kind of segregation that we have lived under should be terminated. I don't think she made any mistake there. But I do think the government is making a mistake now to try to hinder us from being separated, since we have already lived under segregation for the past centuries. Now we would like to be separated and live over here to ourselves, since we cannot get along with you in peace.
Let me take you into another area that we discussed at the opening of the show, Mr. Muhammad. That is your prediction in the book, The Message to the Black Man, that the whites and the non-whites inevitably must come to a war. Do you really feel that there must be a war between the races?
If you will not submit to the law of justice, freedom, justice, and equality, and submit to do good, certainly. This is the time that good confronts us to rule the people, and not evil. Your history teaches us that you have always warred. In Europe, there was one.
The Supreme Wisdom Lessons by Master Farad Muhammad to his servant, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Wisdom Lessons by Master Farad. Supreme Wisdom Lessons by Master Farad Muhammad to his servant, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for the Lost Foundation of Islam in North America. To the Muslims of Number 1 Michigan. The following is the original rules of instruction to the laborers of Islam, and the title of Muslim given by our Savior before his departure, with a footnote of a few words of explanation to lay pressure upon their minds of their many errors in the past and present, are living in every part of the planet Earth. Therefore, the enemy must now be removed in every part of the planet Earth. Here, lesson number 1 is said to be the student's assignment first. Lesson number 1 lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home, the best part of the earth, and who is the enemy to him and his nation, and why the enemy and righteous could not live together.